Welcome to Crying Inside, where family stories don't just make you cry, but also leave unforgettable, deep lessons. Here, every emotional Filipino story carries a message, a wake-up call for us to reflect on our own lives. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button today to join us, because sometimes just one story can change how you see family and love. Imagine this. If one day you suddenly have millions of pesos in your hands, what would you do? Would you share it so the whole family benefits, keep the secret to yourself, or quietly test who truly loves you for who you are, not for the money? Behind those lottery tickets and dreams of a better life, there's not just joy, but also tests of people's hearts, trust, and even betrayal. And sometimes, it's in those moments that we realize who truly loves us and who's just pretending. Let today's story touch your heart. This isn't just a motivational story, it's an inspirational story about choices, trust, and valuable lessons we all might face in life. When Aunt Maria held my hand tight, her thin hands trembling but warm, she said with heavy breaths, "Anik, I don't have much, but I won't let you sleep on the street." Then she quietly placed an envelope in my hand, almost all the little pension money she had saved her whole life. In that moment, I couldn't hold back my tears. I cried not just because of the money, but because of the unconditional love she gave me. Aunt Maria, the poorest, the weakest, health-wise, yet the one who gave the most. At that moment, I understood something important. Family love is never measured by blood or money, only by the heart. In life, sometimes we think family is the safest place to lean on. But when storms hit, when you have nothing left, that's when you see clearly who truly loves you and who just wears a mask, covered with sweet words. I used to think that if I got rich someday, my family would love and appreciate me more. But reality is harsh. Some people only come to you when you can give. And when you need a hand to hold, a shoulder to lean on, they're the ones who turn their backs the fastest. This story isn't just your typical family story. It's an emotional Filipino story about testing trust and how money reveals people's true nature. And today, I want to invite you to join me on this tearful journey. The journey of a woman who suddenly got a chance to change her life. But instead of being happy, she chose to keep it a secret and to test the trust of her own family. If you were in my shoes, would you dare to test your family? Or would you choose to live in an illusion, holding on to the belief that everyone is sincere with you? Watch until the end of this story to find your own answer. This is not just a motivational story, but also an inspirational story about family, betrayal, and the true value of love. My name is Ana Reyes. I'm 33 years old, and I work as an accountant for a small company in Makati. From the outside, many might think I have a stable life. A job, a place to live, and a monthly salary. But only I know that every day is a race against time, piling bills, and the exhaustion weighing on my soul. Every morning, I leave my tiny rented room before the sun fully rises. I squeeze into the jeepney then, the MRT, yawning while calculating how many days left until my car payment, how much I need for electric and water bills, and whether I can afford a better quality bag of rice this week. My job demands absolute accuracy. But my salary is just enough to pay debts and get by. The old car rattles, but I keep it because I can't afford a new one. My small rented room, with peeling walls, stifling heat in summer, leaks in the rainy season, but at least it's where I can sigh after 12 hours at the office. Every night, I lie in bed, listen to the neighbors' noise, and wonder, will my life ever get easier? But the biggest burden in my life isn't just work or money, it's family. My father, Roberto, was a high school teacher. He was the typical authoritarian father. Since I was little, I grew up hearing his criticisms. Who would marry a clumsy girl like you? Being a good student doesn't necessarily mean success. You work as an accountant, but always complain about money. It's really embarrassing. I've never remembered a single kind word of praise from him, and the distance between father and son grew wider. My mother, Elena, remarried a wealthy businessman after divorcing my father. Everyone thought I was lucky to have a successful stepfather, but the reality was very different. He never saw me as his child, and my mother always seemed uneasy whenever I showed up. To her, I was a burden, an unwanted wrinkle in her current luxurious life. Every time I came home to visit, I felt like a stranger in my own family. My younger brother, Miguel, 28, is unemployed and addicted to basketball betting. Every time I get a call from him, I know it's going to be a loan request. Sis, can you lend me some money? I'll pay you back next week. But week after week, the promise remains just a promise. I've helped many times, and the result is me having to tighten my belt so he can keep losing bets. My older sister, Isabel, is the opposite. She's a doctor, married to a wealthy engineer, living in a fancy house in Alabang. But that glamour only made the gap between us wider. Isabel looks at me with pity, half judging, half feeling sorry. To her, I'm proof of a failure. No shining career, no happy family. Our rare meetings are filled with questions that leave me speechless. When are you going to get married? Why don't you switch to a better job? Among all these distant and selfish relatives, there's only one person who's always been my peaceful refuge, Aunt Maria. She's my mother's sister and lives a simple life in Bulacan. Aunt is an elementary school teacher with a modest salary, living in a small tin-roofed house with a few pots of chrysanthemums and roses on the porch. She's had diabetes for many years, her legs always tired, but she never complains. Whenever I visit, she greets me with a smile and a humble meal full of love. One time I asked her, "Auntie, why do you stay so optimistic despite all the hardships in your life?" She just smiled and said, "Anik, being poor isn't something to be afraid of. Poverty without love is truly frightening." In a family where everyone calculates and keeps score, Aunt Maria was the only one who made me feel unconditional love. Just thinking of her warms my heart amid all the coldness. My life, before the storm hit, could be summed up in 3 words. Enough, but empty. Enough money not to starve, but never enough to be comfortable. Enough people to call family, but no one who truly understood or protected me. Enough faith to keep going to work every day, but empty when thinking about the future. This was the fragile ground, where a sudden seed, a small lottery ticket, would fall and change everything. My 30 y treasured birthday came quietly. No parties, no flowers, no fancy gifts like my sister Isabel always flaunted on social media. That day, after 12 hours at the office, I wandered through Quiapo Market, where narrow alleys were filled with the smell of exhaust, street cries, and lottery stalls hanging everywhere. I had a little habit. Every birthday, I'd buy myself a lottery ticket as a wish for luck. Just a thin piece of paper, costing a few pesos, but it gave me a feeling of hope, even if only for a moment. That day, I picked a completely random set of numbers. The ticket seller, a skinny old man with a crooked smile, looked at me and said, "Happy birthday, Hija. Who knows? Maybe today's your lucky day." I just smiled politely, not believing that lucky day would really come. That night, I bought a small meal box, lit a tiny candle, and told myself, "Happy birthday, Anna. Hopefully next year will be different." I ate in silence, then turned on the television to watch the lottery results, just out of habit. But as the numbers appeared one by one on the screen, my heart seemed to stop. One number matched, then 2, then 3. By the last number, my hand was shaking so much, I dropped the ticket on the floor. I bent down, picked it up, looked again and again. I couldn't believe it. They all matched. I had won the 300 million peso jackpot. For the first few minutes, I just sat motionless, feeling like I was dreaming. Then happiness flooded in, mixed with a cold fear crawling down my spine. I burst into tears, but not just from happiness. I was scared. I thought of Miguel, my younger brother who's addicted to gambling. He would definitely see me as a money machine. I thought of Isabel, my wealthy older sister who's always comparing. Would she see me as a rival if she knew I was richer? I thought of my parents. Both have new families now. But would they come back looking for me when they heard the news? And I remembered stories I read online. Lottery winners sued by their own siblings over unequal shares. Lottery winners getting divorced because of money fights. Lottery winners ending up broke after 5 years. Lonelier than before they got rich. Words hit me like a punch. The lottery is the fastest way to destroy your family. This was no longer just a simple joy. It was a huge burden, a test of people's true nature. I sat all night, holding the lottery ticket, my mind spinning with countless scenarios. On one hand, I could escape a hard life. No more worrying about bills. No more living in a rundown rental. No more nights counting every penny. I could have financial freedom, the kind I always dreamed of. I could travel, study a new field I liked, or even quit my job to start a new life. But on the other hand, I knew this clearly. The moment I spoke up, I'd never have a peaceful day again. I'd be surrounded by envy, exploitation, and fake sweet words. In that panic, I stood up and looked at myself in the mirror. Ana Reyes, with messy hair, red eyes, still wearing the wrinkled shirt from work. I whispered to myself, "No one will know this truth. I have to keep it a secret. I have to test them first." This wasn't just a decision, it was a vow. I knew, to survive, I couldn't let money turn me into prey for greedy people, even if they called themselves family. I needed to know exactly who was really by my side for me, and who just wanted my money. And so, a lottery family story that seemed like a dream for many became the toughest test of my life. I never imagined that from that moment on, my life would turn a new page, a journey full of tears, betrayal, but also genuine love I never expected. Right after finding out I won the 300 million peso jackpot, I couldn't sit still. I went to see Addy Cruz, a well-known lawyer in Makati who handles big financial cases. His office was on the top floor of a fancy building, with glass walls overlooking the bright city below. I sat there, still wearing my plain office blouse, but in my pocket was a lottery ticket that could change my entire life. Lawyer Cruz looked over the numbers, nodded slightly, and said slowly, "Miss Reyes, first of all, congratulations. But if you want to keep this secret, we need to set up a trust fund. That way, the money will be managed under a legal entity, not your personal name. Your identity will remain confidential. Few people know about this method, but it will protect you from public scrutiny and overly curious relatives." I sighed with relief. I was lucky to have a safe path. Within 2 weeks, Mr. Cruz and I had set up the security system, the trust fund, investment accounts, and a long-term management plan. Financially, I had achieved what I had dreamed of my whole life, financial freedom. But the worry in my heart never lessened. During the day, I kept going to work as usual. I sat in a cramped office, entering numbers, answering emails, listening to coworkers complain. No one could guess that the woman wearing worn-out shoes, carrying a simple lunchbox, was actually holding a huge fortune in the bank. I still squeezed into the MRT, still paid rent for a tiny room, still ate instant noodles at the end of the month. On the outside, I was poor Anna. Inside, I was already a millionaire. That secret made me both scared and lonely. Every night I lay awake. I wondered in the dark, if I told my dad, would he stop blaming me and finally hold me in his arms? If I told my mom, would she look at me with pride, or just calculate what she could get? Would Isabel be happy for me, or would she compare my new wealth to her glamorous life? And Miguel. Does my younger brother see me as a person, or just an ATM machine? Those questions tear at my mind. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, where money can turn family ties into a cold bargain. Then a thought flashes, a bold, even dangerous idea. I want to know the truth. I want to see who in my family really loves me when I have nothing. I start crafting a scenario. I'll lie that my company in Makati suddenly went bankrupt. I lost my job, and I need urgent money to survive. An amount big enough to test their kindness, but not too impossible for them to handle. 250,000 pesos. I spent hours writing every detail. Reasons for losing the job, fake medical expenses, even how to respond if someone wanted to check. I want the story to be so real that no one suspects I'm testing them. While writing, my heart feels like it's being squeezed tight. I remember all the times I reached out to help these very people. When Miguel was in debt, I emptied my savings. When Isabel had a lavish wedding, I put it on my credit card to help her out. When my parents needed house repairs, I sent money even though I knew they'd never mention it again. And now, I just want to know, when I really need help, will they do the same for me? I look at myself in the mirror and whisper, "Anna, this isn't just a test. This is the truth. If they're not there for you when you have nothing, then you don't need them when you have it all. The plan makes me tremble, because I know I might face the biggest disappointment of my life. But I also understand, if I don't do this, I'll live my whole life in doubt, in an illusion of a family that might never have truly existed. Before starting, I share half truth, half lie with the only person I trust, my best friend from college, Liza. When she hears me, she frowns. "Anna, this is really dangerous. If they find out, you'll be seen as a fraud." I look straight into her eyes. "I don't want to trick them, Liza. I just want to know the truth, just once. If I'm wrong, I'll accept it. But I can't live forever in doubt." Liza sighs and takes my hand. "If you've made up your mind, be prepared. Because sometimes the truth hurts more than lies." That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Outside, the jeepneys were still noisy, and dogs barked in the distance. But in my head, only one question echoed. If you had a big secret like mine, who would you trust first? Your parents, siblings, or a close friend? The first day I decided to start the experiment, my heart was pounding so hard, my hands shook holding the phone. The first person on my list was my father, Mr. Roberto. I arranged to meet him at a small cafe near the school where he still teaches. When I walked in, he was already sitting there, arms crossed, with his usual serious face. I pretended to sigh and told the story I had prepared. The company went bankrupt. I lost my job, hadn't received my last paycheck, and now I didn't know how to pay my rent or some medical bills. I spoke in a shaky voice, like a desperate child. He listened, but his eyes showed no warmth. When I quietly said, "Dad, I need help. About 250,000 pesos, I promise to pay you back," he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, cold tone. "Cassandra." He still called me by my full name, with no hint of affection. "How many times have I told you? You have to save money. You need an emergency fund. You didn't listen, and now you're complaining. This is your lesson." For 20 minutes straight, he lectured me. "You have to think ahead. Don't rely on others." Then finished with a line that stabbed my heart. "I can't help you. You have to take care of yourself." I nodded, biting my lip to keep from crying. It wasn't an answer I hadn't expected, but hearing it directly from my father was still a sharp pain. The next day, I went to my mother, Mrs. Elena. I chose noon, just after she returned from the spa, sitting on the imported sofa in her new husband's luxury villa. I nervously told her about my unemployment and struggles. Her eyes flickered with emotion, then quickly avoided my gaze. "Elena and Uncle Victor are building a resort in Batangas. All the money is tied up there now. You know, business is never easy. Mom, I'm sorry, but right now I can't help you. Try asking your dad. Or Isabel. Paul, her husband, earns a lot." She said it like I was a stranger begging, not her own child. I forced a smile and left, feeling heavy-hearted. Next was my sister Isabel. I went to her house, a fancy villa in Alabang. She greeted me with smiles and warm hugs, like a successful sister pitying her failing sibling. When I told her my story, she held my hand, tearing up, saying, "Oh, my poor you. I never expected you'd have it this hard." But when I mentioned the 250,000 pesos, her eyes changed. She pulled her hand away, hesitating. "You know, Paul handles all the finances at home. I only have pocket money. I'll ask Paul, but he's very strict about money. If it's no, please don't be upset. Or, if you need, you can stay at my place temporarily. We can rearrange the guest room." A vague promise. I knew well, there would never be a follow-up call. Then it was my brother Miguel's turn. I didn't dare expect much, but I texted him anyway. I wrote a long message, explaining I lost my job, was desperate, and urgently needed 250,000 pesos. Just 10 minutes later, Miguel replied, "Sis, I'm stuck too. I lost a basketball bet and need money badly. I might even have to borrow from you." I was speechless. While I was pretending to ask for help, my brother was really asking to borrow money back from me. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I kept calling a few other relatives. Aunt Hilda, who used to brag about buying gold rings every holiday, said she was preparing to buy a new car and had no extra. Uncle Ramon, who once borrowed money from me to open a repair shop, said business was tough and he couldn't help. Everyone had their own reason, but the outcome was the same. No one wanted to help me. My heart grew colder. Each refusal felt like a cut deeper into my already fragile trust. I began to wonder, was I wrong to create this challenge? Or was the truth from the start just that cruel? While I was still drowning in disappointment, suddenly the phone rang. It was Aunt Maria. Her voice trembled over the line. "Child, I heard you lost your job. Are you okay? Have you eaten? I know you're worried, so I want to see you." The next day, she took a jeepney from Bulacan all the way to Quezon City. When she got off, she was still wearing her faded old clothes, worn-out slippers, holding a cloth bag. She grabbed my hand, her eyes full of worry. "Child, I don't have much, but I won't let you sleep on the street." Then she pulled out an envelope. Inside was almost all of her small pension money. I was stunned. Tears welled up, and I hugged her tightly. "Aunt, I can't accept this." I choked up, but she pressed her hand on mine, gently shaking her head. "Family is like that. I'm not rich, but whatever little I have, I give to you. If you need to, come back to Bulacan and stay with me. It's a small house, but there's enough room for you. We'll get through this." In that moment, all my defenses crumbled. I broke down crying in those thin arms. Among a whole family calculating and cold, only the poorest, the weakest, gave me genuine love. That was the turning point that broke my heart wide open. I realized this wasn't just a test about money. It was a lesson about family, kindness, and the raw truth I had been avoiding. After that day, I sat alone for a long time, holding tightly the envelope Aunt Maria gave me. Every bill inside felt 100 times heavier than its face value, because it carried love, sacrifice, and the sweat she'd saved all her life. I knew if I kept this secret forever, my heart wouldn't be able to bear it. The only person worthy of knowing the truth was Aunt Maria. That night, I invited her to stay in my small rented room. The room was old, the ceiling damp, but with her sitting there, the atmosphere suddenly became warmer than ever. I placed a cup of hot ginger tea in front of her, took a deep breath, then shakily said, "Aunt, I have to confess. I haven't been honest with you." Aunt Maria looked up at me, her eyes kind but mixed with worry. My heart tightened, tears welling up. "Aunt, I'm the lottery winner. 300 million pesos. I hit the jackpot." The room fell silent. Aunt looked at me, her eyes wide, not with greed or shock, but surprise. I quickly added, afraid she'd misunderstand, "I haven't told anyone, not even my parents, Isabel or Miguel. I'm scared if they know. Everything will fall apart. I just want to know who's really by my side when I have nothing. And you, Aunt, are the only one who's been there." She put down her teacup and sighed deeply. After a moment of silence, she smiled, though it was a little sad. "Anak, I'm not mad at you. It's just, I feel sad that you had to find out the truth this way. But I understand. Our family has never been easy." I squeezed her hand, choked up. "Aunt, I will take care of you. For life. You don't have to worry anymore. New house, medicine, everything. I'll handle it all. I owe you my life." Aunt shook her head gently, her eyes reflecting a distant sadness. "Anak, do you know why I wasn't surprised that money caused a family rift? Because I've been through it. Let me tell you." Aunt Maria leaned back in her chair, hands clasped. Her voice deepened, each word recalling pain long buried. "When I was young, I had a marriage. Robert, my ex-husband, wasn't entirely a bad man. When we first married, he was hardworking and gentle. But when your grandmother passed away, I inherited about 500,000 pesos. Not a huge amount, but for a young couple, back then, it was a fortune." She paused, eyes distant. "I dreamed of buying a small house, so we wouldn't have to rent forever. But Robert was different. He wanted to invest in a business with friends. I opposed it, but one day, I discovered my signature was forged. The entire inheritance was gone. They invested it in a restaurant, and within a year, the restaurant went bankrupt. Everything vanished into thin air." I went silent, holding her hand tighter. She smiled sadly. When I confronted him, he just said, "That's our money. I have the right to decide." As if Grandma's hard work and my dreams didn't matter at all. We divorced afterward, Aunt started over from scratch, raising her child on a teacher's salary. And she learned one thing: money doesn't change people. It only reveals their true nature. I felt my heart twist hearing that. It turned out the pain she once endured was exactly the same fear I have today. I looked at her, tears streaming down. Aunt, I promise, I won't let money ruin my life, and I won't leave you alone anymore. You gave me love when I had nothing. Now, I want to give you peace in the rest of your life. She smiled gently. Anik, I don't need a big house or fancy car. I just want you to be happy. But since you've promised, remember this. Use that money not to prove anything to anyone, but to live true to who you are. Those words sank deep into my heart. A simple emotional lesson I'll never forget. Money is a mirror. It doesn't change anyone. It just reveals their true nature. From that moment, I decided, I won't just live for myself, but also to repay Aunt Maria's unconditional love. I will take care of her for life, so she won't have to worry or suffer illness alone in her remaining days. This is not just a promise. This is a new beginning. A Filipino inspirational story continuing, born from tears and the deepest love. After many sleepless nights, I decided to face my family directly. Not to reveal the lottery secret, but to say everything I've kept inside for so many years. I wanted to look them straight in the eye, to let them know I'm no longer little Anna, obedient and resigned as before. I sent messages to each of them, Father Roberto, Mother Elena and her new husband, Sister Isabel and her husband, Brother Miguel, and some relatives who often borrowed money. I kept it short. This Sunday, 4 p.m., please come to my place. There's something important. That day, as the clock neared 4, my small room was packed. My father sat sternly in the corner, arms crossed, face full of curiosity mixed with irritation. My mother and Uncle Victor entered, their expensive perfume blending with judging eyes. Isabel adjusted hair designer bay, forcing a smile. Miguel arrived late, eyes bloodshot, still smelling of alcohol. A few relatives showed up too, clearly more curious than genuinely concerned. I stood in the middle of the room, hands trembling but voice steady. Thank you all for coming. I know there have been many rumors lately, saying I'm unemployed, saying I'm borrowing money. Today I want to clear everything up. The room fell silent, waiting. I took a deep breath, looking at each familiar yet distant face. When I needed help, no one was there. I called my dad. He just lectured me and walked away. I turned to my mom. She said she was busy building the resort. I went to Isabel, she promised, but then went silent. Miguel, you even asked me for money backward. The others, each had their own reason, their own excuse. But the truth is one, no one really wanted to help. The atmosphere thickened. I heard a few clearings of throats, a few frowns. My dad tapped the table lightly, his voice dry. You speak as if we abandoned you. I only wanted to teach you how to be independent. My mom interrupted, defensive. Elena doesn't not love you. But at that time, things were tough. The resort needed capital. You have to understand, right? Isabel hung her head, whispering. She said she'd ask Paul. But you know how he is. Miguel sneered. I'm not exactly well off either. Everyone has their own problems. I looked at each person. Every word they said felt like a needle stabbing my heart. But this time, I didn't let tears fall. I took a deep breath, voice firm. That's not family. Family isn't just there for the good times, but when one is desperate. I have helped each and every one of you. I gave all my savings, all my strength, thinking I was doing the right thing for family. But when I needed help, I had no one. Everyone started murmuring, blaming me back. My father scolded. You're selfish, only remembering what you give, not what you get in return. My mother shook her head. You're making a big deal out of everything. Everyone has their own struggles. Isabel tried to smooth things over. Please don't speak so harshly. Miguel frowned. Stop it. You're suffering too. It's not like you're lucky. The overlapping arguments poured onto me. But for the first time in my life, I didn't tremble, didn't back down. I stood tall, looked straight at them, and spoke clearly, word by word. Enough. From now on, I will live my own life. I won't beg any more. and I won't wait for anyone. You all can keep living however you want. As for me, I don't want pity, nor empty promises. I will walk my own path." The room fell silent. Everyone looked at me, surprised, as if they were seeing a completely different Anna. My father clenched his teeth. My mother turned her face away. Isabel moved her lips as if to say something, but stopped. Miguel just sighed, leaned back in his chair, avoiding eye contact. In that moment, I felt a new strength rising. For the first time, I was no longer the weak one in this family. I was no longer Anna who complains or silently endures. I stood up, and I spoke the truth. They could blame me, turn their backs, or look down on me. But I knew, from this moment on, my life wouldn't depend on them anymore. And even if they didn't know it, I held a secret that could turn everything upside down. But I didn't need them to know. I only needed one thing: freedom. This was the turning point of my life. A family betrayal story I had to face, but also a Filipino drama story that helped me find myself. The following months marked a new chapter in my life. For the first time in my life, I no longer woke up worrying about debts or the rattling old jeepney in the traffic jams of Makati. I used part of the lottery winnings to buy a small house in Tagaytay, a place with fresh air and endless blue skies. The house wasn't extravagant, but it was enough for me to feel like I was truly living, not just existing. The first thing I did was give Aunt Maria a small, sunny house nearby. The walls were painted light yellow, and the windows opened to a garden full of flowers. I clearly remember the moment she stepped inside, her hands trembling as she touched the walls, her eyes welling up. "Child, I never thought I'd have a decent home like this," she said, choking up. I just held her tight and whispered, "It's all thanks to the love you gave me." But I knew living just for myself and Aunt Maria wasn't enough. From my own family story, I saw thousands of elderly people in the Philippines facing the same situation, abandoned by their children and grandchildren, living in lack both materially and emotionally. I decided to start a charity fund called Maria's Light, aimed at supporting elderly Filipinos who have been forgotten. I didn't do it alone. My close college friend Liza agreed to run the fund with me. She has management experience and a big, open heart. Every week, we go to small villages and slums where elderly people survive only on others' pity. We bring medicine, food, and most importantly, companionship. Many elders say what they need isn't money, but the feeling of not being abandoned. For me, this is more than just a charity project. It's a continuing motivational Filipino story, one I want my audience watching this video to feel. True happiness doesn't come from hoarding money, but from using it at the right place, right time, for the right people. I kept my promise, never letting my family know the truth about the lottery ticket. But sometimes, when Isabel struggles at work, I quietly send support through the name of a charity organization. When Miguel falls into debt and is threatened, I arrange for someone else to pay it off, without him knowing where it came from. As for my parents, whenever they get sick, I arrange hospital fees to be covered by a community health fund. I don't do it to change how they see me or to be thanked. I do it because I've learned forgiveness is sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself. One day, when I step out onto the porch and see Aunt Maria watering flowers in the early sun, I feel my heart lighten. I have come a long way, from a tired girl in a cramped room in Makati to a woman strong enough to live for herself and shine light for others. This is not just my own real-life inspirational story. It's also a message for you, those watching this video, that happiness isn't in the amount of money in your account, but in how you use it to make a difference. And sometimes, achieving financial freedom isn't about proving anything to anyone, but about having the ability to live fully and help others live fully too. I smile. This is the new life I have chosen. Looking back on the whole journey, I realize a clear truth. Money never changes a person. It only reveals their true nature inside. Those who are greedy become even greedier. Those who are cold become even more distant. And on the flip side, those who are loving, no matter how poor, are always ready to give everything they have. I learned this from Aunt Maria herself. A poor teacher with a small pension and failing health, but a heart richer than anyone else's. When I had nothing, she didn't think about keeping her last peso for herself, but about how to make sure I wouldn't have to sleep on the street. That sacrifice taught me that the greatest gift isn't measured by money, but by the genuine love that comes with it. Family truly are the ones who stand by you when you have nothing left. They're the ones who don't turn their backs when you fail. They're people like Aunt Maria, who dare to share even when they themselves have little. That's why I want to send this message to you, watching this video. Cherish those who stay by your side in hard times. Because anyone can be with you when you succeed, but only those who truly love you will walk with you when you fail. Money can bring comfort, buy a house, a car, or a fancy party. But money can't buy true love, loyalty, or kindness. Those come only from the heart. And when you find them, hold on to them with all your gratitude. Like a phrase I always remember. And now, I want to ask you, if one day you won the lottery, who would you share it with first? Leave your answer in the comments below. I believe your sharing will also become motivation and lessons for many others. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of the story. This is Crying Inside, where family stories don't just recount events, but reach the very heart of you. Every video, every story carries a lesson within. And sometimes, it's not only the character's lesson, but a mirror reflecting our own lives. If today you've cried, fallen silent, or simply reflected on your family, then this channel's mission is complete. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next touching Filipino stories. Because here, every week, you'll meet lives, pains, and hopes that we believe will leave you with something deeply meaningful. And if today's story touched you or brought back a memory, please share this video with your friends and loved ones. Spread this simple but priceless message. True family love never keeps score. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. We will meet again in the next stories, where tears fall not just for sadness, but for healing.